It's working. Well, it's Friday. It really is Friday. And I'm back. I was off last week. We didn't go anywhere. I didn't do anything, but I was just giving myself a break. It's been a long, coming on 3 years now, really, since I've just been slogging away because of all the jobs I brought in. January 2018 or something like that, I had like 200 jobs in here, and I still have a few left. Well, not a ton, but I have some left, and I'm working on them. But I have to tell you, I'm dragging a little bit. So I took off some time, and I worked on some watches of my own, which I really liked. Sort of had a break, and that was nice. And I learned some stuff, which is always good, learning some stuff. And I see that it's time for a wrist check. Okay, wrist check. I'm wearing something that I've been eyeing for a long time. The Laurier Hydra. I've been eyeing Laurier stuff for a long time. Since I first became aware of them and thinking about them a fair amount. There's a lot of things I liked about them. I liked the way they looked. I liked the simplicity of them. I liked the scale of them. They weren't too big. The fact that it's got an internal rotating ring is pretty neat. It's flashbacky stuff. I've seen a lot of people saying very good things about them. I haven't seen anyone saying not good things about them. But I kept holding off and buying one. I just really wasn't sure until the incomparable and unmatchable Brian Sindler, famous plein air painter and artist. He's very well known, and his stuff goes for lots and lots and lots of money because he's cool. But he and I did a deal, and I ended up with this. And I tell you, for the money, these brand new are $500. You want to talk about bang for the buck. I'm going to do a whole review on this watch, but I have to tell you right now, I'm pretty happy with it. There are a couple little things I can talk about, but that's a pretty nice watch. I dig it. Thank you, Brian. Everybody go find Brian Sindler. He's on Instagram especially, and buy all of his paintings. Because if you don't, somebody else is going to. Okay. So it's neat. I'm gonna do a full overdue review on the Laurier. What are you saying? And we'll talk more about it. They've got some interesting designs, and I think the bang for the buck is. This is a nice watch. Oh no! Look who came to see me. It's Mr. Milo. I know I see you. Who's a happy cat? Are you happy? Okay. Ow! Right through the jeans. Yes, Milo. I know. Okay. Anyway, I hope you guys had a fun week off. Let's get to it. Tom N. About Star Wars, I received the making of... Milo, you're gonna be the death of me. Jeez. What the heck? What'd you do that for? Milo, stop it. Stop being silly. Okay, let's go. Let's see if I can make it from here. Nope, failed. I'm actually normally a pretty good shot, but not today. Okay. Tom N. About Star Wars, I received The Making of Star Wars, the definitive story behind the original film for Christmas. What an amazing story, full of pithy quotes. At one point early on, when Lucas couldn't get financing and pre-production costs were skyrocketing, he said he seriously doubted that Star Wars would ever make money. Well then. You know, it's crazy. Something I just learned. Sabrina and I have been taking our time, and now that we've gone through Mandalorian, we wanted to sort of explore some of the other, Star Wars stuff out there. And so we finally broke down and watched, we watched all of the Clone Wars, which had some great content, and now we're on Rebels, and they've got some great things. I can go on and on about it, but there's an arc in Clone Wars talking about these three beings who are sort of manifestations of the Force, and the dark side, light side, and the balance, and apparently, and Anakin's there in the middle of it. And apparently that is something that Dave Filoni found in some three-ringed handwritten notebook that Lucas had from the 70s. Lucas gave it to him, gave him all this stuff and said, you check it out. So that's a very old story. It's super cool. Anyway, man, I have to tell you, there are, in Rebels and in the Clone Wars, sometimes they can be kind of a little bit like kid shows, but then they can be utterly fantastic. They can be amazing. And especially visually, they can be exquisitely beautiful. I mean, beautiful scenes. The last episode of season 2, of Rebels, starting with about 11 minutes left in that episode, is just like, I don't know, for me, I just thought it was amazing. Not just visually beautiful, but just compelling. But give Clone Wars a try, I would suggest. Milo, you moron! What are you doing? Just what you do is you look, there's a lot of filler episodes that you can skip. You look online, there's a watch order, because not only are there episodes you can skip, for some reason they were originally released, they weren't in chronological order. So you have to look online and you get the watching guide. Neil Sengupta. Hi Spencer, great Saturday morning show with your cup of tea. A question for mail call in 2 weeks, which is today. I have a 7T Seiko chronograph, which looks exactly like the one that you showed, but with Arabic numerals, which always gets complimented. I've learned from you that they are plastic, but can it be serviced? Yes. It's designed to come apart and be put back together, so yes, it can be serviced. It's not like an old, the old Timex mechanical movements, they were not meant to be serviced. I mean, the movements were just meant to be replaced. And the plates were basically cold riveted together, and there was no way to get them apart to fix them. Those watches were disposable. Your 7T absolutely was designed to be repairable. It doesn't have screws. They have these like white little plastic like lock tabs, like you put them in and turn them, and they lock. I'm sure you're familiar with what I'm talking about. But that's the kind of stuff they do. Yes, you can absolutely service them. I've never had a whole lot of luck doing it, but that's because I haven't done it very often. AV Cuber. I have a woodblock print. Problem is, you can't expose them to direct sunlight or they will fade. You folks may or may not remember, a few weeks ago somebody had a question about like Japanese woodblock prints, like ukiyo-e stuff, and I talked about how much I loved them. And he had this, and as I said, I reminded AV Cuber that UV-proof glass is a thing. I actually have. I got 5 of these from my old mentor, helper here in town, the old gentleman who retired, and he gave me 5 different ones of these, and they're I'd say they're 50s, maybe 60s, I'm not sure. But they show different kinds of watch movements, and they're beautiful. This lovely red, which fades like a crazy person. So I have these carefully put away, and when the time's going to come, I'll have all 5 framed, and I'll do it behind UV glass, and that's what you'll see back here. Yeah, these are cool. Look, they came with like little hanger diddlies on them, so you could just hang them on the wall of your shop. Super cool. Neat stuff. We have, I first learned about UV glass, UV framing. Oh man. When we lived on the other side of town, before we lived in California for a while, before we came back, there was what we now realize, we were just discussing this, the last great estate sale. One of the old like 30s bungalows on the far side of town, the old town, and we went there, and it was an estate sale, and it was like the last one. I wish I would have realized it was the last one. You have, these families this generation, the World War II generation, and they're almost all gone. But this place was one of those houses. Everything in it was like 30s to 50s to 60s. At a certain point, they just stopped buying new things, and they got along with what they were doing, and it was like not only was the house packed, but the stuff was so cheap. We were digging through and we were looking at all this stuff in this estate sale, and I found a bunch of posters that were rolled up in a tube or something that had clearly been in the guy's garage. And I opened one up, and it was an original 1952 like garage calendar, tear-off calendar with Marilyn Monroe. But it's one of the very, very, very first ones that were made. I mean, just an incredibly rare find. It's not like worth $1 billion, but they're worth money. We got it for 10 cents. But then we were worried about it fading because it's been rolled up for so long. And we took it, at that point, we had moved to California. You took it to a framing shop in Daly City, and they framed it with UV-proof glass, and it's great. That's the way to do it. Joseph Stahl. I need some help with a watch repair. I have a Seiko 7002 that wasn't keeping time, so I checked the oscillating weight, and the screw that holds it on is tight, but the weight still has a lot of play, so it looks like the bearing is bad. They're a little floppy. Looking online, finding a new weight and bearing for the 7002 A movement is impossible. Yeah. Some people say the 7009 weight, NH35 weight, or the 7S26 weights and bearing would work, but some disagree. Do you have any input? All of those 7000 series weights should work. There's no reason that they shouldn't. Any 7005, 7006, 7009, 7019, 7S26A for sure. Any of those weights, they'll just drop right on. If I had, I'm trying to think, NH ought to work, 6R, 4R. They really haven't changed them. It's the same technology. I think the only thing they really changed was the amount of the weight. Having more weight on that oscillating weight is not a bad thing. The 7002s, like the 6309s, had a fairly narrow weight that went back and forth on the axle, whereas some of the earlier 7000s, they had almost a half moon shape. More weight means that you're getting more force being moved and put in. But as long as it clears the plates and the case back, you should be fine. Ian Watson. Oh, I can sympathize with the acid goo going on. One of my favorite Soviet quartz watches, which I wore everywhere, the thing stopped and it was a fresh battery. And when I got it, but of course, it was a Chinesium fresh battery. And when I lifted the case back, it's like someone had run amok in there with a lump of tar. The coil was like a hedgehog, where the corrosion had eaten the copper. Whole chunks of the circuit board were erased. The stepper's copper coils destroyed, and I was so dismayed. It's still in my project boxes. This particular one has a unique model circuit board and gearing, but one day it will shine again. Man, I tell you, battery acid just annoys me. Just annoys me. I swear, if I ever design or build a quartz movement, which won't happen, but if I ever did, one of the things I would mandate is some kind of inert container for the battery. Something that would hold the battery completely separate, utterly sealed, so that even if it did leak, the acid would never get out. That's what I would do. Man, that's a big thing of toilet paper to be hauling home on your shoulder. Wow, and groceries in the other hand too. Well, I hope he makes it. Oh, sorry, the supermarket's right up the way. Oh, look, AV Cooper, I split your question up by accident. Okay, hi Spencer, I have a question for the next mail call. I recently bought a 7548, and by the time you're reading this, it will have arrived. Now, my question. I saw in your videos that you put a jewel in the main plate to fix the play in the hand stack. Where can I buy that jewel? Seiko still makes the jewel. It's common. That jewel is, they used it in a bunch of stuff. They used it in 6106, 6119, 6309. 6319, 6349, all the 7000 series watches from that period, 7S26A. It's the same part. The actual part number is 011146. Seiko still supplies them. I can still order them. It's just a matter of hunting them down, talk to the different, call up, a parts company, call up Esslinger, or call up, ST Supply or something like that, or Burrell, and say, hey, I need to buy this particular Seiko jewel. They're going to ask you for a casing number or a movement number. And you can say, probably the best one to do is to call them up and say, hey, don't tell them what you actually have, because they'll get confused, and because that part's not for that. Tell them you have a Seiko 7S26A, and that this is the part number, and they should be able to dig it up for you. What are you doing? He's trying to make biscuits on my side of my leg. What are you doing? Silly cat. Anyway, so that's the thing. And it's a standard size that works with the Zeitz reamers. So you can just, if you have your Zeitz set, you can just boop. The one thing to think, though, is the metal right there on the main plate is actually quite thin. So you need to just go slow. Doesn't hurt to go slow. Rick. You mentioned how Grand Seiko today is Epson. It's actually both Epson, Suwa, and S2, Daini. Sorry. Epson makes the 9F quartz and 9R spring drive movements in their Shiojiri studio, and S2 still makes the 9S automatic movements in their Shizukuishi studio. A Grand Seiko quartz chronograph would be pretty cool, yes, but probably not much different from the 7A. They do have a few current chronograph models, FBGC, but they are built in the 9R86 spring drive with column wheel and vertical clutch. Yeah, I get it. No, I understand. I swear, though, if Grand Seiko, if they went and they basically did with the Forest what they did with the Forest 15, which is they resurrected an old movement, if Seiko did that, if they resurrected the 7A, and they put on a variable trimmer, like in the old days, well, the 7A's never had one, but like the 7548s and stuff, they had that variable trimmer. But if they got a 7A new movement, exactly the same amount of jeweling, 15 jewels, all that stuff, but if they did that and they put in, a variable trimmer would be super nice, but man, they could do it 1-to-1. They could just bring the whole damn thing back, and they would charge. The only reason they would charge just a ridiculous amount of money. And they could, especially if they had like a display back. So you could see all of the jeweling shining in there. I think that'd just be awesome. They'll never do it, but you know what the great thing is, though? For this product that doesn't exist, this new Grand Seiko 7A chronograph, go find an old 7A chronograph, because you're getting a watch that Seiko sold for a lot of money back in the day, and if they made it today, I don't even know what they charge for it. I have no idea. Okay. Speedy Paul. Oh, I'm sorry. I missed two. Red Astrakhan. I saw a Swiss guy wearing a 7828 in Zurich in 1985 or 1986, and I thought he must know something I don't. I tell you, the 7A chronographs is the first analog quartz chronograph ever invented. Seiko did it. They made them. They made them to prove that they could be done. They wanted to be a world beater. They wanted to show, the Swiss watch industry, the cartels, what non-Swiss watchmaking quality could be. And they blew it away. They blew it away. 7As are fantastic. Garrett Jansen. About ukiyo-e woodblock prints, check out David Bull's YouTube channel. He's a British-Canadian self-taught woodblock carver who runs a shop in Tokyo. You'd really appreciate his content. Planning on ordering a few prints from him. Thank you. I will absolutely look him up. That's that's cool. I love modern things. I swear, people are so creative these days. They do all kinds of beautiful stuff. It's great to see people really stretching out and doing different stuff and being creative and creating new things. I think it's wonderful. Speedy Paul. Okay, he is talking about my oh my god, 6216. Hang on a second. Yeah, 6216. This baby. Okay. Seems a lovely watch would look fab on beads of rice. Yeah, it probably would. Beads of rice, hang on a second. Okay, beads of rice, grains of rice. I don't know, Seiko produced a lot of models on grains of rice, and I think, as did Omega and stuff like that, and I find myself drawn to variants that are not like the standard ones, which is where they mostly are grains of rice. That's what they look like. Here is a 62, my 6218 on the bracelet that it came to me on. Now that's a beads of rice that I can get behind, because it has the wider outer sections of the bracelet, and the beads of rice is just like a little strip in the middle, and I think that's nice looking. So anyway, yeah, 6216, 6218. There they are. Baby GS and baby GS. The only difference between this movement and this movement is this one doesn't have jeweled mainspring arbors top and bottom. That's it. Unfortunately, I found out that you can't just swap in the barrel and train bridge from a 6216 or 6246 because the mainspring arbor is a different size. It's a different barrel and it's a different mainspring, which seems wild to me. I don't know why that would be, but that's what they do. And what was he talking about? I'm always frightened changing the date back after midnight, so when you did that, I gulped. I appreciate this is essentially a GS movement, but do other Seiko models allow you to do this, or is it just the higher end stuff, and why? P.S. Your washing machine is nothing. Ours moves the house from its foundations. I can't imagine. I've never in my life been closer to a washing machine that was louder than the one that we have. And the dryer is hellacious. It just gets louder and louder. Okay, so doing a quick set on the day. Older style watches, they don't have quick sets. Like old school Rolexes of this time, they don't have quick sets at all. So you're just supposed to run it forward and forward and forward. You have to do that on a Rolex because Rolex's date correctors, date driving wheels are fairly primitive. All they do is they push. Nothing changes going one way or the other. You can't go backwards. You'll really jack something up. Seiko, on the other hand, made all of their date driving wheels spring-loaded with a lever. So they'll come and they'll push the date wheel over. But if you go backwards, say this is the thing, and you go backwards, it's spring-loaded, so it goes under like this, and then it snaps back up. But that said, rule of thumb is that you never do that. I know which models generally I can get away with doing that kind of thing. There are only a few that you really can't, but it's probably a bad habit. But you know me, I try to find the fastest way to do something that produces the same result, and sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. But whatever you do, don't be like me. Let's see now. Okay, Daini Ben Yakar. He was talking about an Arnie, Seiko Arnie H558, 5000 or 5009. Where can I purchase spare parts for this watch? Well, it depends what you're talking about, but the answer is probably eBay or nowhere. Seiko doesn't do long-term part support, period. They stopped making the Arnie late 80s. They probably discontinued part support before that even happened. Depending on what you need, it can be a real problem. It's easier to find movement parts because there was three movements in that family: H556, H557, H558. Now, of those three, only really two are 100% swaps, more or less, and that's the 8 and the 6, because they're both round movements. The H557 is rectangular, and most of its stuff won't swap over. Some of it will, but like anything on the outside will not. But you can still find H556s for not a ton of money. So that's where you'd go. But if you're talking about like insert or a shroud, hands, dial, that kind of stuff, any of that stuff that's good is going to be in a good watch. So if you have a destroyed Arnie, there's going to be no, in many ways, there's no real 100% bringing it back. It'd be a better investment of money to buy a better watch. If you're talking specifically about the shroud, now the materials on those, Seiko made those materials and they don't age well. At a certain point, by this point, they just degrade internally. It's hard to really explain it. They just stop holding together. And the shroud, it's supposed to be this sort of high impact plastic. And whatever made it strong, whatever compound made it hang together, just goes away, and they just shatter. You can't stop it. It just happens. But Armsaver makes a beautiful one-to-one recreation of the shrouds, and they're great. There's a number of different ones, but theirs is, I believe, the closest. And it looks fine, and it's a part that you need to replace. Seiko doesn't make them, and so that's fine. It's the best replacement part you can get, and that's where you go. Okay. John Boy of Alaska. Spencer, you want to know what helps with dirt in bracelets like that? Simple Green. I use a small plastic pickle relish jar with Simple Green and hot water. Toss in all the gross parts, bracelet included, and soak for 10 minutes. Then give it a good shake or swirl, depending on the fragility. The bracelet especially works well with this. No need to take it apart. Great on old cheesy spidels. Soak and shake. Soak and shake. It really does a great number of loosening and getting out 75 to 90% of the wrist stuff, and then I run it through my ultrasonic last, and it gets out of the cracks and crevices. That's great. I have a bracelet. There's an aftermarket bracelet company. They were definitely back in that day. I don't know that they exist today, but they were called Bambi, B-A-M-B-I. Hang on. And they made, like Spidel, they made a range of like replacement straps and things you could buy. So going through my stuff, I found this Bambi bracelet. Well, you can't tell, but the insides of this, like all of the hollow links in the center, are completely filled with some kind of black grease. And I found this, and I was gonna, like, you can't even see through it. It's packed. So I'll try it. I will try it. This is the very thing I hesitated putting this in my cleaner because I didn't want to destroy that entire batch of solvent, but this will save me. I'll try it because I have a ton of Simple Green, but I'll be the first to confess, I kind of don't know how it works. I know you're supposed to dilute the heck out of it, but that's all I know. Other than that, it's green, and apparently it's simple, but I don't know much else beyond that. I don't know how citrus works to clean grease. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And when I can't figure out stuff quickly, I just ignore it. I forget it and it goes on. I haven't understood how Simple Green has ever worked. And I've known about it for decades. I've never understood it. I don't know. Let's see. Con MCN. Hi Spencer, I have a quick question about my 6105-8119. Apologies if you've already answered this in a previous video. Oh my gosh, there's so many things I've mentioned. I don't expect anyone to go back and try to find any answer that I ever did. If you have a question, just ask. What's going to happen with all my old videos? All that information, none of it's indexed. Hours and hours and hours and hours of content. It'll all just get put in the can. Anyway, I have a long sweep version from February 1972. Have noticed that it hacks. Do all 6105s hack? I vaguely recall reading previously that the majority of 6105s don't hack, but my recollection may be incorrect. If I'm right about the hacking being a rarity, does this make this more valuable? Okay, well, you got a few things here. You had two versions of that movement. You had the A and the B. 6105A was made for the slim case 6105s. People are going to just punch me. Because I keep running away from the camera. Okay. 6105A was for the early 6105 dress watches, and there were some. I have a few. People don't realize it, but if you look on eBay and you're looking at old 60s Seiko dress watches, and you see a Seiko 60s dress watch that is date only with the crown at 4, look at that real carefully because it might be a 6105. Any case, but in terms of the divers, the slim case 6105s had the A movement. Only the very, very late ones might have had a B hacking, and that's in the big. That's like kind of the middle end of 1970, right at the end of their run, when they swapped over to the cushion case 6105, 8110, 8119. 1972, that's much later than a long sweep should have been. Long sweep on one of these, if it came from the factory, should have ended. I mean, they only made the long sweeps into 70, maybe 71. I don't think as late as 72, but hey, what do I know? But the B movements, they do hack. And those are the ones. So typically, any cushion case should hack. That's my expectation. And it's not totally incorrect for a slim case to hack, but it would need to be a super late one or one that had a bunch of work done. Aren't these just so elegant? I mean, they're just both such great watches. So the first thing to do is to get the back off and look and see if the bridge, the winding, the framework text says A or B. You can also look, there's a little hole, and you can actually see the set lever in there move, and you pull the crown back and forth. You can actually see it through a hole in one of the upper plates. Luke W. Hi, Spencer. I have a question for you for the next mail call if you have time. I'm considering purchasing either a 7015 or 7018 times sonar and was wondering if there are any special considerations regarding the 701X series movements. For example, I also own a 6138 bullhead, and I know the clutch mechanism is prone to failure, and leaving the chrono running helps release stress on the spring. Is this a good rule for the 701Xs? Any other tips you might have? I greatly appreciate your expertise and insight. Thanks. It's an eternal question that deserves to be answered every single time it comes up. I wouldn't say, just talking about the 6138 and the 6139s, I wouldn't say that the chronograph wheel is delicate or prone to failure. I would say that it does not respond well to abuse. It's just, you have to be careful how you're dealing with them. My recommendation, when I have seen them fail, and I've seen them fail with my own eyes during use, it was not from making it run or making it stop. It was from hard resets where the chronograph is running, you stop it, and then you hit this hard reset, because when you push that thing, it has a spring that is fighting against you. It's like a catch spring, and as you push, the button won't go in. You have to build up pressure until you overcome the resistance, and then it goes clack. Problem is, that spring, that's adjustable, and it will also give different resistances based on how recently or how well the watch was serviced. So if you pump a ton of power into that reset, you can jack up the chronograph wheel pretty easily. See, look. Isn't it so consistent? About 2.5 minutes early. So the big thing with those is you can run it or you can leave it stopped. But if you leave it running and you decide to stop and reset, just wait until the hand is about, I don't know, like 2 or 3 minutes indicated after top dead center, after 12. Stop it there and then reset it. And if the reset button is harder to push than the stop start button, that's a problem. That's also an indication of an issue. The pressure to reset those should be about the same. Talking about the 701Xs though, they're much more strongly built. The clutch spring in the 6139 and 6138 is basically like two circles, one inside the other, and it's connected. The inner is connected to the outer on 2 points, and the inner is basically they're connected here and here inside. Hang on a second. Sorry about that. Okay, so the thing though, so you have the spring on the 6138, 6139s are basically two circles that are connected inside, connected to the outside in 2 points, connected to the inside in 2 points that are separate. The Daini 701 blanks, their chronograph wheels are like a star wheel. So they actually have 6 fingers running out from the central point, so it makes kind of like a springy octopus, except an octopus with 6 legs, not 8. But it's a lot stronger design. You have they just hold together better. You still want to treat them the same, but you don't need to really be as ginger with them, especially considering they're strong enough to be flybacks, which means they can be running and you can reset them while they're running, and they will reset and be okay. Biggest thing with the Daini chronographs, the vast majority of them that I have ever seen were not ones that were imported into the United States. I don't think too many of them came here. They seem to mostly have gone to, Pacific, Southeast Asia, Oceania, that kind of area. And as a result, they tended to suffer from a lot of moisture intrusion and a really long, hard working life. Big thing always is to look at the dial and look at the hands, look at the loom and make sure that it's white and clean. Look under a scratched and, dirty crystal and look at that dial and see how nice it is under there. Water's the biggest problem. If you see anything that looks like water damage or like poor handling on the dial, scratched hands, anything bent, anything like that, avoid it. You just have to choose carefully when you're getting a 7000 series watch, because it's just, you just don't see them very often where they haven't been abused. Adrian Hargreaves. Oh, you made a comment on my old Darth Tuna video. I never should have sold that watch. I had a first-gen Darth Tuna in beautiful, basically perfect condition. The 1,000-meter one with the nice, clean, early, minimal textile. I never should have sold that thing. It was incredibly stupid of me to have sold it. And I sold it to somebody that I no longer work with by choice. And so I can't even get it back, which is super annoying. Anyway, Adrian Hargreaves. This is one of my favorite vids you've ever done. They say a type of watch will really connect with you. And for me, the Tuna is it. They're really special. And I need around 5 of them. Well, I don't know why I sold my Darth Tuna. That was just... I've done some stupid things in my life, and that's certainly one of them. Right up at the top. I've done some stupid stuff, but almost nothing as stupid as selling my Darth Tuna. Floyd Morrison. Hi, Spencer. I recently discovered your channel and had been binging all your videos. Well, thank you. Thank you. They're so enjoyable and informative to watch. I hope the information is valid, and I feel I've learned quite a bit. I hope you've learned good information, because I'm perfectly capable of putting out bad stuff, but I try to be good. I have a potentially broad question for your next mail time. Sorry about that. Sadie is making this amazing coffee cake. She found some recipe somewhere. She made it once before, and it was like... You wouldn't think of coffee cake as being like luscious and amazing and like an indulgent treat. This stuff is great. It's like if you're not careful, like late at night, if you sneak out of bed because you have to get a drink of water or whatever the heck, you'll be able to hear this coffee cake calling your name from another room, and you'll have to go and eat it. Anyway, I have a potentially broad question for your next mail time. I recently watched a video by Mark from Long Island Watch, where he said that hand-windable automatic movements should only be hand-wound for a few turns of the crown to get them going, and then just to let the rotor do the rest of the work. He said that fully winding up an automatic watch via the crown was bad for the watch, as it put excessive wear on the gears. This freaked me out, as I normally hand wind my automatic watches to full power when they've been sitting for a while. What are your thoughts on this issue? Hope this isn't too general or obvious a question. No such thing. Best to you and Sabrina and the family, cats and dogs included. Well, thank you, Jesse. The only watch model I can recall off the top of my head where you don't want to rely on hand winding all the time is the Seiko 6138. It has hand winding, but that's really only supposed to be for a backup. I had one come through this year that I worked on where the automatic winding system, the pawl lever, had failed, and so it would not automatically wind. And so the owner said, oh, well, who cares? I can hand wind it. And so I don't know how long the guy wore the thing for, and he just kept hand winding it. And those hand winding, manual winding gear setup in the 6138s isn't super fragile except for one gear, which is tiny, and that one got eaten, and so the watch wouldn't wind at all. That's the only one I can think of. Watches are robustly built. With hand winding, they are robustly built. They are not designed to fail. I mean, I would not suggest relentlessly hand winding over and over and over and over every single day. Maybe to top up in the morning, but like you, I grab if I grab this Laurier, if it's been, sitting in a box, I mean, I just got it, but if it was sitting in a box and it wasn't working, it wasn't running because it would run down, I would get it and I would take it out of the box and I would wind it up a good 8-10 times. Zip, 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 zip. I mean, for an example, the Rolex, their instructions, like printed, written instructions when you get your stuff from Rolex, is to wind your watch fully. It's like 30 to 40 times. It says that. You don't have to do it all the time. Get it up to power and then wear it. You're fine. You don't need to wear it all. You don't need to wind it all the time. Don't need to wind it multiple days in a row, but give it a good goose and then wear it. And then at that point, the automatic should take up. But these watches are not delicate, little teeny tiny things. They're designed, they're robust machines designed to be worn in a moving environment and to keep running. They have shock protection and all this other kind of stuff. It'll be fine. I wouldn't worry too much about that. It's extraordinarily rare for a winding situation like what we have with the 6138 to be an issue. Every other watch I've ever seen, those manual winding things are made to be very robust for a reason. They need to be. Chris 101 Gray. I cannot agree with you more with regard to the new Seiko reissue watches. They seem soulless, and the pricing of them from the basic turtle upwards are extortionate. What a lovely word. I just ordered one of the San Martin homages, and for a couple $100, the features, finish, and material simply puts Seiko on notice. My question is this: if some factory in China can do it, why can't/won't Seiko? I don't know. I mean, this Laurier right here is beautifully made. It's beautifully made. It's a beautiful, beautiful watch. It's got sapphire crystal here, hand winding, hacking. It's a high beat movement. It's the bracelet is solid stainless steel. It comes with swag and it was like these things brand new are like $500. It's insane. It is insane. And that Seiko wants, I don't know, their business model is different. Seiko still makes a bajillion different watch models, and the vast majority are really, really, really inexpensive, extraordinarily affordable. It's their high-end stuff. I don't know what their philosophy is behind the idea of making, 1,000-piece limited edition run of some watch where the equivalent mechanism and layout, if it was in another just basic watch of theirs, would be a lot less expensive. I think they're trying to, this is only a theory, maybe they're trying to do more of the artificial scarcity thing that Rolex has just perfected. That the De Beers Corporation did with diamonds, you know. Oh, they're super valuable because we have them all. Or there's a limited amount. I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. But, you know, if you love the watch and the price is not an issue, buy it. But if you have a limited edition watch and you wanted it, but it's thousands of dollars and that would bug you every time you strapped it on your wrist, there's no point. I don't know. Last question, Jim Canataro. Oh, Sabrina got your crystal up and out today. She did it this morning. So it went into the mail stream today, Jim. Quick mail call question for Friday. Do you have any advice for removing 6838 crown stems? I've heard that the keyless works is particularly fussy on those. I need to replace the gasket, and I really don't want to do the extra work of having to reset the keyless. Somebody suggested removing it with the dial facing up. That seems pretty hard to do. No, there's a trick, and I'll input a video. Let's look at it, because that's something to really look at. Because I remember the first time I took out a crown and stem of a 6138, and I did it wrong, and it created, man, did that make some problems. Because if you get the keyless works jacked up, the only way, seriously, even for me, if you get the, you know, the setting, if you get that stuff messed up, you have to pull the hands and the dial and the entire calendar plate, and then you have to strip out, you have to disassemble the entire front half of the watch. It's nightmarish, but there's an easy way to avoid that, and I'll show you. Okay, so I'm going to do you a favor. First, I'm going to tell you the secret. So here we have, see, look, I can hand wind it. The watch didn't catch fire. The earth didn't end. You hand wind it. You just don't want to use hand winding every day to try to get stuff going. Anyway, there's nothing wrong with this watch. This is my jumbo. Look, it still has the remains of the caseback sticker on it. You can barely see it in reflection. See that little dark colorations? That's the remains of the caseback sticker. Anyway, let's open this up, and I'll show you how it's done. Come on, there we go. Okay. So, what am I thinking? It's Friday. I can't think. I don't think anymore. My family, you tend to stop thinking in your mid to late 50s, and I appear to be ahead of the curve. So let's see now. Come on. Yeah, naturally. Oh, look at that. I always love it. Look at that one. Speaking of S2, look at that. S2. That's the service center. So that's Daini. That's interesting. So was it serviced in 1981, March 3rd, 1981, in New York? Well, definitely in New York. I don't know, 1981. Anyway, where's my gosh darn candy air? Where the heck did I? Oh, there it is. There we go. Okay. So here it is. This watch has been here for a while. I probably haven't. I haven't serviced this watch. Service is probably 5 years old, 5 or 6 years old. I should probably service this watch. Anyway, the most important thing when pulling the crown from one of these, you want to do it with the crown all the way in, and I'll explain that why. But that's what you do. The crown should be all the way in. Let me find my handy dandy pointy tweezers. So you have your little catch right here. Pull it out. There it is. There's your stem. You shouldn't have to push that release again to put it back in. It should just go. Drop in right like that. And it should just snap into place. There you go. And it works. Okay, so now for the longer explanation about why. And I'll firm this down later on. Okay, now firm about why. Let's go. Sorry for my dirty thing. The main reason for that is that because these things are hand winders, they have a two-part... Wasn't I just holding my tweezers? Oh, they're there. They have a two-part stem diddly thing. They have the winding pinion, and on top of it has this setting wheel. So, and they interact with each other. They have sort of a set of sort of slidey gear teeth, so that when you turn the crown to wind the watch, these teeth catch. If you turn it the other way, they just go click, 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 click. So the reason that the crown has to be inside, I'm trying to think of how I can show you guys this. Well, okay. So you've got these two parts, right? One there. There are those two parts. You want to keep them together. When you pull the stem on a watch, what happens, okay, when it's running like it is, it's just, these two pieces are together. They're just sitting there as one. But if you pull it out to time setting or something else like this, you separate the two. And then if you pull the stem, this baby, there's a couple things. These two need to be together to hold each other in place. If they're apart, this can tumble out of the way. It can turn sideways like that. And then there's, you have this in its correct place, and there's no way to get the stem to come in. I've never been successful in getting this to flip back over where it's supposed to be. It goes right here. This is darn it, that's the setting lever right there. So, you have, I'm amazing. Don't worry, these are junk parts. So that goes right in here. If I didn't drop it, which I did. Come on. So there's your winding pinion. Just like so. God damn. What's the point of wearing finger cots if they're covered in stuff? It's what I get for touching old things. Let's see. And then this would go right here. Right in there. It's sitting on top of that piece. But if it's over here again, and you pull the stem, it's just kind of tottering there, and there isn't enough on the top to keep it in one place. Sorry about this filthy 6138 movement. You can't really see it in here. That's the setting lever right there. There's the springy bit. These are actually, and there's the winding wheel right there. I imagine if I tried to put a stem into that, it would not work, because this junk movement, it had that pulled. Let's see. Let me open up this movement. Another unrestored movement. Hang on a second. Okay, so here we are. You can't really see it, but trust me, that's the deal. And it's just a pain in the ass, because if you do jack that up, if you pull that out and you cannot get the stem back in, you've got to pull the hands and the dial, and then you get to the calendar plate. You've got to pull all the calendar stuff. That's what this is. That's the calendar plate without this material on there. Even that's not enough. You have to, all this stuff needs to be stripped off to get down to the setting lever. You have to pull it down to the point, and even this isn't enough, because it'll be inside of a thing, inside the movement. The back will still be on here. You have to pull this guard bridge. You have to pull all the setting lever material. You have to pull the setting lever with wheel that's right here. You have to rip this all the way down to reset it and then build it up again. So again, moral of the story is, Just make sure the crown is all the way in, then push the release, then pull it. Okay, and I think that's about it. Isn't that thing something? It has a little mark on there. No, it doesn't. That's quite the piece right there. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. Anyway, folks, that's it. That's it. Thank you so much for waiting. I am going to be doing an overdue review of the Laurier Hydra. I'm digging it. I really am. I really am digging it. I love the taper bracelet. It's got nice finishing. I love that the crystal looks like an acrylic, but it isn't. I don't think it's an acrylic. I'll have to double check. But it's like an old school watch. I just love it. Anyway, but I'll do a video on this and we'll get going. And I have some other stuff too, more Insomnia watch stuff. I was digging through, and because I was on vacation, such as it were, I actually started poking around on some other like super junky watches. But stupidly, I didn't start filming any of them. I'm like halfway through doing one, and it was a 7619 8050, I think, that someone had flooded it completely. The movement was badly damaged by rust, but the dial and hands are beautiful with nice tan tritium lume. It's really cool. Maybe I'll jump in on it, but I mean, it looked awful before, but it'll look nice when I'm done. Okay, folks, thank you. You have a great weekend.